and you can quote this on me. There is no way the Orioles or Red Sox make the playoffs this season. Yeah, yeah. There's no way. There's no way.
I set the bar really low at the NBA predictions.
I don't think all Mavs fans look into the stats like I do.
It's not the great value Target brand toilet paper or whatever. It's the Charmin Ultra Strong.
I don't know if Nick Nurse is the coach for the Raptors. I don't know if he's the reason why they won the 2019 championship. I feel like that was more of a team effort.
The Mavs cannot say we do not miss Seth Curry shooting threes.
This questions the firing of Dwayne Casey, who I think is a very underrated coach.
To me, the Capitals really pushed all their chips for this season.
Hello, I'm Mike Grimes, and you've been listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our, I would say, sports opinions of the week, sports hypothetical opinion of the week. Austin, this one you came up with, and I thought I had a definitive answer, but there's a lot that goes into this question. I'll let you set it up.
Yeah, I have 3 or 4, maybe 5 different ways to think about it, but the real question is how long is the average championship window? And this is across sports lines, so we're not just saying MLB, NFL, NHL, NBA, just across all sports. What is the average championship window? I think it depends on how your team is built. If your team is built with a lot of young players, I give the example of the OKC Thunder. I think that your championship window is longer than if you build a quote-unquote super team that is like a back then Heat, like the Heat with LeBron, or an example for another sport would be kind of like Brady going to the Bucks. I don't necessarily think people thought that was a super team, but it's a lot of older veterans that are making up that roster. So your window is a lot shorter. And there's also a window that's maybe not a super team, but it's just a really good team. I would put that like the Celtics this past year. A lot of the NHL teams, I think, fall into that window because you don't really have to have a generational talent to win a title. Because like Kachuk is really good, but I don't think he's generational, right? And so there's a lot of guys that are on these NHL teams that are not generational winning. Like the Oilers are going to have a longer title window than the Panthers because they have 2 generational talents in Draisaitl and McDavid. So what are your kind of thoughts on how you would define a championship window's length?
Yeah, I think you did a great job talking about it. A generational player, like you said, you have a lot more time just because you only really need to add a couple of pieces and you're a competing team. But when you're talking about the NHL, I think of the Dallas Stars. They're just a great team, I would say. They have great players on the team. And the problem with them to me is like you have a window, just how long can you keep these players together? Like
I think their championship window kind of closed there for a bit. Like it was, I think 18-19, 19-20 was a window because 18-19 they lost in the second round to the Blues, but could have easily won that series, and the Blues went on to win the Cup. So I'd say that was a part of their championship window, and then obviously the next year they go to the Cup, so that's a part of their championship window. And if not for a phantom tripping call in Game 4, they have a chance there to tie the series, and we don't know what happens. But the next year, they missed the playoffs. The next year, they are out in the first round. And then they're back to the Western Conference Final. And this year, they at least made it to the second round. So their window is still open. But is there a certain number you look at with teams at the start of their window that's like, this team has X amount of years to get this done?
I think you got to look at the age. Because I will say before the Mavericks traded Luka, I think they were in their championship window. But to me, it was only 2 to 3 years because you have Kyrie Irving and you go and sign Klay Thompson. Older guys and big parts of that roster, I would say.
Yeah. I would say the largest championship window currently is the Thunder in all sports.
Yes, and to me, though, where I would push back against that, their window being open is that I don't know if that championship roster and that window is going to be fully set because they have so many picks.
going to be so open for so long, in my opinion, because they're a championship contender right now. They're going to be next year and the year after that. I mean, it's going to take a devastating injury really to take that away. The only team I could really see a concrete argument against for the longest window that's going on is the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers championship window is going to be long, but it's just does Ohtani pitch? Because I think Ohtani is definitely a significantly better player when he pitches, because that value you get from having a pitcher that can hit is immense. But they also have signed a lot of really good players, and their window's definitely open this year. But I think, like, the Yankees, they have a generational talent, so their window's open. Like, if we lose Soto, yes, but you have Judge, and Judge is hitting over 400 this year. So it's, as long as you have Judge, you have a chance. And I think a lot of teams are in that boat. But I think you have to, like, are the Nuggets in a championship window right now? I don't know. Like, even if you can win a title and not be in a championship window, in my opinion, because you can just have a crazy good run.
Yeah, and like what you're saying, to me, a championship window is...
I don't think the Heat with Butler had a championship window, even though they made 2 finals. Like, even they were a 1 seed, but then they made the finals as an 8 seed. I don't think when you're an 8 seed, you're in their championship window. When you're playing in the play-in, you're not really a championship. You're not thinking about the chip, even if you get there, right?
Yeah, and to me, so I think the problem is generational players. Like you talk about Jokic.
Well, I'll just give one more example. I don't think the Rangers ever had a championship window that's opened. They won a title, but I don't think they had a championship window. Because I would, if you asked me the year they won a title, if their championship window's open yet, I would have said no.
No, it was going to be the next year.
Which never happened.
Yeah, because they won. So I was like, hey, well.
I don't know if that's not why that didn't happen, but I get what you're saying. It didn't matter as much because they won.
Yeah, so to me, the problem is a generational player because you're always going to have a chance with a generational player. But I wouldn't say you have a championship window until you have like a very well-built team.
But you also don't need a championship or a generational player to be like. I don't think the Celtics have a generational player. Tatum's really good. Brown's really good.
They have a fantastic team, which is
that's my point. Like their championship window is going to be open for. It's been open for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's going to be open for another good little bit.
I think it's about to close because there is kind of new management that doesn't want to pay that much. So I think that roster is going to kind of be torn apart.
We'll see whether or not that actually happens.
I would say when Giannis won his championship, the Bucks, they were in a championship window because they made that trade for Drew Holiday.
Well, they were in a championship window the year after that. I think they were the 1 seed the year after that.
Yeah.
They're the 1 seed. I know, no, they weren't. The Heat were in 22. The Heat were the 1 seed. But the year after that, the Bucks were the 1 seed and lost to the Heat, so they were still in a championship window. It's really just the injuries that have happened to Chris Middleton and Dame and Giannis during the season that kind of pushed them down, and they're not in a championship window anymore. They weren't in one last year with Dame. But the year before that, when they lost to the Heat in the first round, yes, they were in the championship window.
And I think, to me, it's just how well-built that roster is. I need to see that roster and be like, there are good players here. They've shown that they can make it, or they have the chance to make it. With that Thunder team, they haven't shown it, but you can definitely see them competing in the championship and having it and winning. It's to be expected just given where the roster is at, I would say.
So what do we think the average championship window is for a team that opens a championship window? What's the average length that it stays open?
Okay. So I think it's shorter than we think. So I'm going to go 2 to 3 years.
I think that's what I was going to go with. Because I think back to the Royals. That's what really comes into my mind. And they were good. They made the wild card game. And then the next year, they were literally insane. That year they won the World Series, they were amazing. I think the best team in the league. And obviously, they won the title and dominated, right? The Mets, they played that year. Their championship window was really only open that year, right? And I think you could be a championship window team for 1 year. But again, I don't think the Heat were in a championship window when they went to the title with Butler the second time at least. Maybe the first time, definitely not the second time. But Kansas City, baseball's a little bit different because back then only 5 teams made the playoffs. So I think if you're a top 5 team in your conference, you can say that you're in a championship window, especially if you're ending off the year hot like the Warriors were. I mean, they walked through the playoffs. They didn't lose a game until the World Series against the Giants. Was their first loss in a game all playoffs, which is crazy. But I'd say the average team that opens up a championship window, it's open for 3 years. I think 3 years is the average for a team that opens it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of teams that are never going to get a championship window anytime soon, but that doesn't decrease the value or decrease the number. Like, I think the perfect example, in my opinion, is the LA Kings from 2012 to 2014. Those were the years. Those were 3 years where they were one of, if not the best. They won the cup, lost in the conference final, won the cup. That's it. That was it. Like, they had years where they made the playoffs, but they weren't really contenders at that point. So they had 3 years where they were utterly dominant, and that was it. Now, you have teams that survived longer. You have teams that survived longer than that and don't win any time. The Kings had a 3-year stretch where they were title contenders and won 2. That's a good percentage. And we're about to find out whether the Stars can do it in this championship window that they've been having on and off for the past 6 years.
Yeah, because that roster has just gone through a lot of turnover. And like you and I've talked about, just that defensive, like it's such a well-built team, but their defense has suffered because they just can't. You can't have great players. You can't have great and good players at all positions. You need kind of help with that generational player or superstar player, I would say. But yeah, Stars, I think, is kind of like it was opened 2 years ago, and now I think we can see it closing, but like they could work through some stuff and then open it again. But yeah, I think 2 to 3 years is the right amount. So let us know your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.